Hey boys, how you doing? I love you guys. Um, Today's Wednesday, and I think it's the 18th. The weather here, it's raining. We got rained all night last night. It's a little windy out. Looks like it might rain again. Uh, I was reading First Samuel this morning in the Bible and talked about David fleeing from Samuel, and he met up with some of his family, 400 people, and he didn't have any. He left in such a hurry. He didn't have any weapons, and the priest gave him the sword that Goliath had, and when he killed him, and so he used that, and he said, "There's not another sword like this one." And Samuel, also his Jewish name Shaul, found out that David had talked to the Cohen, the priests, and had them killed. And just shows where his heart was. It was, he's killed God's priests. It's pretty hardcore. But anyway, so Iraq. On my first day in Iraq, well, it was, I guess, the second day. I went to go meet with my Marine counterpart. We took over from the 24th MEU, Fob Kalsu, and I was taking over from the guy that was doing the ammunition, which was on the far southeastern side of the base, and and we had a tent out there and a shower and a porta potty, and there was a staff sergeant Marine I was taking over from, and his guys, and right when I showed up, he just shot a Iraqi in the stomach, who showed up to the gate 2 days later, and he passed. And because of the location of where being on that far, we were, I don't know, maybe we were about 200 meters from the prisoner of war camp that we had, and that was the closest thing to our location besides just us, me and my guys. And there was a small guard tower, and part of being out there, we also had to guard that sector of the base. And just beyond us was the trash heap where we would throw all of the trash. And so a lot of times, we still had to defend ourselves, but these poor people would come. So there was the Sunni and the Shia, and they're both Arab people in Iraq. And also there's the Kurds. In just a brief history, we were at the bottom edge of the Sunni Triangle, and the Sunni Triangle was about, 70 by 70 miles or so. Everything out. The closer you were to the airport, the closer you were to Saddam's family, and the nicer you were going to live, and the nicer your home was. And the Sunnis actually, so back in around 1900, the British came through Iraq, and there was also Kurdistan. And when the British came through, they redivided the borders and they took out Kurdistan. So part of Kurdistan was where the section of Iran and Iraq and Syria come together, and so they were displaced. And the Kurds were great people. Most of the loyalty and the good help that people we could trust normally were the Kurds that were over there. So basically, we were at the bottom edge of the Sunni Triangle, and the Sunni were, because the Shia were being oppressed. The Shia were the majority in Iraq, and the Sunni were put in charge by the British because of the country, because they were more secular and easier to deal with. So there were most of the fighting that went on during my tours in Iraq. My first one in particular was with Al-Qaeda, which was a Sunni sect, and they were far more violent than the Shia, but because of where we were placed along this border of the Sunni, invisible border of the Sunni Shia triangle, we actually had to deal with the Shia Mujahideen, which was a force that was fighting us, and also Al-Qaeda, which was a Sunni force. And so it made it kind of difficult because of that location and having to fight these two different groups who, and most of the time, we heard them fighting each other more than we were actually fighting them. You would hear gunfire all the time, and they were killing each other. And they've been wanting to kill each other, but Saddam hadn't let them do that. So, and the Sunni, they were allowed to go to college, and they were educated, they had money, and the Shia were oppressed. The Shia, in large part, made their living off, much of Iraq was a swamp at one time. The Tigris and the Euphrates go through there, which I saw on a normal basis, which is in the Bible. And they would make their living off the marsh and the fishing and this. And Saddam, what he did is he dammed up the marsh basically to punish them and hurt them. And so it was an interesting location. It was an interesting time in OIF III, 2005 to 2006. So the Marines, when we took over from the Marines, they would do a lot of patrols, but they were almost all foot patrols, and they would only go out about 3 clicks. Well, we would get hit by mortars a lot, and they were normally about 7 clicks out, so they weren't taking care of the security of the base, and the fact that they weren't stopping these mortarmen that were further out. And the thing with these mortarmen is that they were actually, most of them at this time that were attacking us were ex-Iraqi army, so they knew what they were doing. And because of our location on the base next to the airfield, and being next to the ammo dump, the ASP, we had a constant barrage of mortars, but not for the first month. The first month that we were there, nothing happened at all. And well, we did lose 2 young guys, Private Dickens and PFC Laware, and that was an accident. The first 2 losses we had out of the 17, where there were a couple of snipers up in the it was checkpoint 17. It was a tower over Tampa, and one of them had lit up a cigarette, and they were wearing ghillie suits that were made out of burlap bags, and they just caught on fire, and Laware burned to death, and Dickens, I believe, tried to put him out, and his caught on fire, and he jumped out of the tower and broke his legs, but he didn't die instantly, and they put him on a plane to go back to Texas to the burn center, and I believe his heart failed him on his way there. I think they were both about 19 years old. Dickens had a 6-month-old baby and a wife at home. And so that first month that we were there, the Shia and the Sunni, the terrorists, they were just watching us to see what our patrols were, what our habits were, where we would go, what we were doing. They were gathering intel on us. And boy, after that month went by, all hell broke loose. But we would get mortared, or patrol would take an IED. I imagine almost every day. I mean, we got hit hard, and I think that's where I'm going to leave it for today. And I love you boys, and I'm proud of you, and you guys have a good day.